It's happening. And so, okay, so I'm recording the screen here that I'm showing you that I've got on my on one of my monitors here. And one of the things that we're going to get into, one of the basics of real estate, is called a deed. And the deed just shows the public who actually owns the house, who owns the property, who owns the real estate. So in most states, because the United States does not go back as far as, the beginning of, Genesis 1, at least in the United States government's right. So so when you put a property under contract, what's going to happen is the title company or the attorney, like in Georgia and in the Carolinas, you guys use attorneys to close deals. In Texas, they use title companies. Not much difference. Title companies just are really insurance companies, and what they do is they run something called a title search. And so they look at the deed and look at any potential encumbrances on the deed. The most basic one of those would be like a mortgage, right? So if this deed conveys, realistically, ideally, the mortgage should be paid off. Any liens should be paid off. But then, let's say real life situation that there's two people on the deed and one of the person dies, and the person dies without a will. And so how do we do that? So this is where you have something called the probate process. When it'll go to court, and the court system, the process will try to locate and identify any heirs. Did that person have any children, nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever? And if so, well, if they can locate anybody and identify anybody, then the rights will go to that person, whoever they are, in that deed. And so it can make things a little bit hairy. So the deed, they just do a title search to make sure that the deed can be sold. So here, you're probably not going to deal with this so much. Probably, Zach, you would more than Alex would. But the general warranty deed here is the best, cleanest way to transfer title. And so a title company is going to give insurance on this on a traditional close, like a hard money lender. If you're going to do a cash purchase, like if we have a cash deal, Zach, that you need to move, somebody might come with a hard money lender or maybe a private money lender, and they're going to want title insurance on that house before they put their money up. Right? And so the title company is going to need to see that the title doesn't have any encumbrances or defects on it. It's a clear title so that they can insure it. Now, in the event that there is something that they don't like and the people still want to move forward, they'll put an exception to the title policy for that issue. But generally, the general warranty deed is the best form of title you can convey, and it gives you the most protection as a buyer or a property owner. Most retail sales are going to have a general warranty deed convey, maximum protection, and basically it's the seller saying that they guarantee that this property has no title problems ever. All of the ones that came before them, if there was any, they've been rectified and clarified, and they'll stand behind that legally. A special warranty deed is the next best one when it doesn't offer the same amount of protection as a general deed, but it basically is saying, like, since I've owned this house, since I've owned this property, I am affirming that there have been no encumbrances or issues since I've been the owner. I cannot promise what's come before me, but I can promise you what's come from me and forward. These are probably more common in commercial real estate. Not a grant. Does that make sense? Following me here?
Yeah. Yes.
A grant deed, I've never seen that in Texas. So common in states like California, go figure. A quitclaim deed, for example, like we just did one of these here on one of our transactions with Leandro Garcia. So this guy was divorced, and the weird thing is like him and his wife still hung out, and they weren't married anymore, which I'm not even going to ask questions about that. I want to ask questions, but I'm not. But she was still on the deed. And so she had to sign something called a quitclaim deed to relinquish her rights in the deed to the other party. That doesn't really offer any protection. It just doesn't. So like these are common in probate. So like let's say hypothetically like you inherited a property and you have 3 siblings and your siblings want nothing to do with this and they're cool with you just doing whatever you want with it. So they would sign, each one of them would sign a quitclaim deed to you, relinquishing their interest in the property to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You'll see these sometimes. Quitclaim deeds are happening. Bargain
Hey,
and sale.
Mark.
Yep.
So when you say it has no protection, um, but the whoever signs a quick, the sibling who says I want nothing to do with it, they don't have any right to. It doesn't give them any chance to come back on it, though, does it? And say, actually, we wanted that.
It depends on the circumstances. That would be more of a question for a real estate attorney.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of there's complexities. Like law is written ambiguously and vaguely for that reason, because it requires interpretation and how does this apply to me or this situation, which is wild. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Generally, no. Generally, they sign it away and it's notarized. Which means they're pretty much giving up what they have. One thing you'll see here in Texas, at least, is a trustee's deed. And so if somebody was to buy a house at an auction on the courthouse door on Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month, they will take title in a trustee's deed. They'll get a trustee's deed there, which is not really good. So what they would want to do after the fact is go through an actual, attorney and do a legitimate bona fide title search and have any encumbrances cleared off the title. Now, does that make sense? Because in the event you were ever going to sell it, you want to get it to you. If you want to sell it, you want to get the most amount of money and to do that, you're going to have it have the most exposure to the most amount of buyers, which is your MLS, your retail listing. Now, most of your buyers coming with a retail listing are going to use financing. It's probably going to be either a conventional loan, an FHA loan, a VA loan, or one or the other. Standard Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac stuff. A lender will not lend on a property that does not have a clear title, a marketable title. So they're going to want a general warranty deed. So, if you have a deed that's got an encumbrance on it, it can be fixed. There's a process. And so, for example, I knew people in the Carolinas that did a lot of tax deeds. And so if the government comes and steals the house of the owner because they haven't paid $10,000 in taxes, which is egregious and asinine, but that's another discussion. There's a redemption period. And so the homeowner that got their house taken can go and pay the taxes to the person that bought the house at the auction and get the house back plus interest. Now, in the event that the redemption does not happen, now the period's over. Now the person that bought it at the auction, it's their property. However, the deed still has some encumbrances and it needs to be cleared. So what the homeowner would do is go to an attorney. It's probably going to be a $2,000 to $4,000 cost, but they'll do something called a quiet title action. And they'll have to do a title search. They'll have to go out there and and advertise it in a newspaper for, I think, 2 weeks and see if anybody comes forward to, claim any interest in the property. And if nobody does, then they usually can just quiet it out and make it a clear and marketable title. Which is, if you're going to flip the house or relist it or whatever you're going to do, that's pretty important. Then same thing, we just started talking about a tax deed, high risk. But that's pretty much the gist of it. So those are ways that deeds are conveyed. There's a little bit more granularity to this, but for the sake of what we're doing now, this is really the thing that we're going to have to focus on, because if we're going to be moving deals and a title search comes back after we put a contract on it, we need to know what kind of deed this is. So for example, if title search comes back that on a deal we put under contract, Zach, and it's a special warranty deed, and you're going out there and marketing this to buyers, you probably want to let them know just in case they have a hard money lender or a private money lender that won't lend on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So these small things like this, that just goes a long way, because if you put that in your listing, that makes you look better. That makes you look like a professional. You know what I'm saying? So just keep that in mind. So the next thing, in the state of Texas, lenders do not have to go to court to prosecute a foreclosure. And the reason is because it's a non-judiciary state. Like you're in Georgia. Georgia is a judiciary state, which means that if you default on your mortgage, the loan servicer will have to file a lawsuit to start the foreclosure process. So it takes a lot longer, and it's a little more sticky in a place like Georgia and South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, etc. Where Texas, Arizona, there's like probably half the states do deeds of trust. Where generally speaking, that process is bypassed. And so in a transaction, let's say do you have a loan on your property, Zach, in Georgia?
No.
You want it free and clear. That's right. So my house that I live in, I used a VA loan to buy my house. I used a mortgage to get my house. So how does that work? So I have a lender that aggregates money and they invest it into houses with a borrower, which would be me. And so when the transaction closes, I am the borrower and I am the one who gets the deed of the house. Okay? What I offer in return for the money that the lender gives me is this house, I pledge it to them as collateral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so that collateral gets secured in something called a deed of trust. In Georgia, it's called the mortgage deed. So the deed of trust depends. It's sometimes 12 to 30 pages long, and it just outlines the terms of the agreement. Okay, it identifies the borrower or the borrowers. It identifies the property, what the collateral is, and the terms, the money, the repayment plan, any other clauses in performance or default or what's a default and all that stuff, cure periods, and all that's spelled out in the deed of trust. And so what we do is when we find a property that somebody is, wants to play ball and sell their house, what we'll do is go, like, let's say it's in San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio is located in Bexar County or Bexar County, Texas. So we will go to the Bexar County clerk. And so I go to the website. It's a free website. It's a public website. And I go into look at property records. And so we will type in the property address in the county clerk, and it pulls up all of the things, all of the transactions that have happened on this property all the way back to when this property became sold. So in Texas, that goes back to 1800. It's before 1800, it's called the sovereignty of the soil. So it was the king's land. That doesn't really matter, but I think it's cool to know this stuff. But and so let's say we look on there and we find a deed of trust. You're going to find a deed of trust on there if anybody's had a mortgage, unless they bought it free and clear or that they paid cash. You're going to find a deed of trust on there. So the deed of trust you'll find on there, and you'll also find the deed. At a minimum, you're going to find the deed and the deed of trust. Now, if the mortgage loan was sold, you'll see an assignment recorded as well from one servicer to another servicer. You'll see that recorded as well. You'll also, if there's any other encumbrances, like if somebody got friggin' solar panels like whatever else, or a second mortgage on it, like you'll see all of that stuff recorded publicly. Follow me? So
is a home line of equity, and that's against a property, right?
Yep, that'll get recorded publicly. You'll see that too. What you won't see is the next thing we're going to talk about is the promise to pay, or a promissory note. So here we have the collateral, which is the asset, the house, the property. We have the borrower, okay? And then the borrower pledges the collateral to the lender. In the event there's a default, they will give the property back. Right?
Right.
So the deed of trust is called a security instrument that secures the collateral, or secures the loan by the collateral. Now, the next thing we do is we sign a promissory note, or a promise to pay, which now gives the wherewithal, the legal grounds to prosecute a foreclosure or to pursue the remedies of a default in the event that a default has happened and it's not cured. So in Texas, this is called a trustee sale. So if there's a default, and each lender's going to be different and it's going to depend on what the deed of trust says. So let's say you have 3 months of default, and then after 3 months of default, they schedule a foreclosure sale. And they might schedule it for 2 months out. So let's say you default in January and they schedule your sale in May. Right? Once the sale gets scheduled in Texas, the trust, that's what's going to get filed on public record also as a notice of trustee sale. And it's going to say who the trustee is, who the borrowers are, what the property is, the original loan amounts, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the data that we pull, that we look at to call these people and try to buy their properties. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Are you following, Alex?
I'm following.
So the promissory note is really what's valuable here, because it gives the note holder the ability to foreclose. And so this is where we need to get a little bit more granular, because when we're going to be talking about the strategy we're using here, there is a difference between a mortgage loan and a mortgage note. They're not the same. So when I pay my mortgage, right, every month, I pay a loan servicer called Lakeview. Lakeview does not own the loan. They service the loan. Okay? So every time I make a payment to Lakeview, they get a percentage of that payment for their servicing fee. That's how they make their money. Now, in the event there's a default, they will also service the loan, service the note by prosecuting the foreclosure on behalf of the note holders that own it. So follow me here and let me know if this is not clear. So when I make my mortgage payment, or anybody makes a mortgage payment to Lakeview, PennyMac, Carrington, Bank of America, Chase Bank, whoever, they receive a portion for them, and then they send the rest of the money to the people that actually own the economic and beneficial interest in the note. Okay? So the note holder usually almost always divvied up into percentages. So let's say we have a mortgage note that has $300,000 in principal remaining on it. It was originated at $350,000, and you might have 6 or 7 different owners of that note. One guy might own 16%, somebody might own 20%, somebody might own 50%, somebody might own 6%. And so however that note is owned and cut up, the funds get allocated accordingly once the payment's been made. And typically this is where you get into the trouble with like 2007 and 2008, because they would bundle like all these banks, or these loans would be originated, and they were crap loans that should have never been originated, and they were thrown into bundles of like 4,000 or 5,000 mortgage notes together and sold in bundles to the market. The logic is good, because typically if 100 of those loans default, like nobody's really taking a loss. Like there's a few people are taking a loss, but it's still the whole security is still safe. It's still performing. But when you have a bundle together and most of them start to default, now the whole thing loses value.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happened in 2007 and 2008. And it was totally engineered, and totally, like, the whole thing was fraud. That's a totally different discussion. But here, this is what where the secret sauce is, because the loan servicer, like when you look on the trustee sale, okay, that's publicly recorded on the county clerk. Let's say Alex and I are about to call a lady today in San Antonio that's behind on her mortgage. Her rate's really high, and she's going to pre-foreclosure. Okay, I don't know if a sale date's been scheduled yet, but if it hasn't, it will very, very soon. And so her loan servicer is a servicer called Shell Point, and they probably service, I don't know, 1 million mortgage notes in America, not more. They're huge. So Shell Point just to make this like Shell Point does not own the debt; they service the debt. And the people that own the debt behind this, these hedge funds, these trusts, these investors, they're the ones that direct Shell Point on how to service the loan. So if the terms that the borrower signed in the deed of trust are not met, then usually almost like standard operation, like the foreclosure will happen. Now, we work with a guy who plays in that secondary market. He runs a major fund that buys distressed mortgage notes. So he will go in, and if we can work it out and the numbers work good, then he'll go in and buy the mortgage note from the, or buy enough of it, enough percentage of it, so that he can stop the foreclosure. And then his job is he goes and negotiates owning enough of it so he can restructure the terms, and then have the loan perform again. So, like for example, if somebody's paying $2,000 a month, but they actually can't afford it, but he can bring the payment down to like $1,300 or $1,400, and they can pay that. Well, now if he can, restructure the terms, bring the rate down a little bit, and re-extend the loan back to like a brand new 30-year loan. Now he's just added a bunch of value back into it, and now how much more likely is the person going to pay $1,300 than they were $2,000? A lot more likely, right? That's a pretty significant cut in the what they have to pay. So the likelihood they're going to pay is high, and if they pay, he resells that note for a profit to other people that buy them. Does that make sense? Probably
Yeah.
not. Are you sure? It's a lot.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I mean, probably when he's negotiating this, I mean, I'm I'm just thinking this is so if a bank has these various owners of this note, they have what's potential income, and I'm assuming he approaches and says, "Hey, here's some guaranteed income, and it's 75 cents on the dollar, or whatever the amount is." Right? Is that? I mean, he negotiates it down, or that's
Yeah.
not.
Oh,
That never
dude,
happens.
he's buying it way cheaper than 75 cents on the dollar.
Okay, but less. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Acquiring
So.
it low ensures that when he resells it, there's profit.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with what we do. Like if you want to really build an investment portfolio, like how you acquire the property and the discount you get is really where your money's made.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same idea. Same concept. So we have the deed, separate document. Then there's a deed of trust which collateralizes funds against the property, and the borrower pledges to pay it back, or pledges the collateral in the event of a default, and then the promise to pay is the promise to pay it back. And this is the game we're playing in right now. This is the foreclosure game. So people are in foreclosure for one reason or another. They're not always people that just defected and just decided not to pay the mortgage. Many times, like for example, Alex called somebody yesterday, and there's a volatile marriage, and the lady that answered the phone had no idea that her house was in pre-foreclosure because her husband's been handling everything, and he obviously didn't pay, and she didn't know that he wasn't paying, and so she freaked out on the phone, which is understandable. So she's not like a bad lady; she's in a bad situation. Right, we don't know she's a bad lady, but we can't assume she's a bad lady. We had another guy that had, he's a 100% disabled veteran. And so in Texas, a 100% disabled vet can get a property tax exemption, which they don't have to pay property taxes on their homestead. So he got all that paperwork done, but his loan servicer paid the taxes anyways and escrowed the taxes, which means that his monthly payment went up. And so as he's trying to protest this and say, you guys shouldn't have done this, here's all the documentation, et cetera, he fell behind a couple of months on his mortgage. And then after I think it's 90 days or 45 days, they won't let you pay the mortgage unless you pay the whole thing, the whole arrears, which he couldn't do. It snowballed and it led him to be in a situation where he was about to lose his house. So in that situation, like that dude, I mean, you could say he maybe did the wrong thing by, not paying the bill that was high anyways. That's debatable, but the end of the story is like he was put in a situation where it should have never happened. Like it was not his fault. It was a procedural error, and he was just working with a lender who was inflexible. Um, another example is like somebody puts their mortgage payment on auto pay, and the loan servicer changed. He didn't know it, and so he's on auto pay paying the old loan servicer. They're not giving him any money back, and all the same now. The while, like he's 3, 4, 5 months in default on the actual loan he should be paying, and then he finds out his house is in foreclosure and he owes $25,000 to the bank. Like that's friggin' nuts. That's asinine to me, right? And so that's not his fault. So those kind of things happen, and so we just need to, it's part of our job. So. Are you following what I'm saying here? It's kind of a lot, but I want to make sure this is the core of the matter. All these details here.
No, I'm following it, and I've been looking into this stuff for a while, so it's helpful to. This is just helping fill in gaps, and
okay,
not all brand new is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, very good. So we get the foreclosure gets scheduled here in Texas. That's when we become aware of it, and then we, on our end, try to reach out to these homeowners and see what's going on. How did they get in the situation? What are their goals? Are they wanting to stay? Do they want to sell? Do they need to sell? And the great thing is that when you get to the pre-foreclosure list, you have everybody pouncing on these guys like dogs or like, rabid cats. I mean, it's a feeding frenzy. And so these people are getting blown up by people calling them. Obviously, we're one of the many. The thing is that everybody's looking for houses that are in foreclosure with high equity, meaning they can get a cheap cash sale, they can make money on it, et cetera, et cetera. And in some way, I could see how that's taking advantage of somebody, and the wrong people that are doing it, it probably could be. But I think if we do this the right way, and I'm not greedy, and we actually try to help people, like we're actually legitimately helping somebody out. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to be able to sell it on the market. There's not enough time for that. They are not... they're not going to be able to keep the house. So like the only option really is to sell. So who are you going to sell it to? And this is where I think we can set ourselves apart. And we also have the leg up where we can leverage the hedge fund guy that we work with, right? Who can come in and make a deal happen when a deal would have not been a deal because of the numbers, because of the math, right? So an example of a deal that we're closing on probably Friday, I think, is a lady that owed like $269 on her house, and her rate, she had a 5% interest rate on it. Her monthly payment, I want to say it was like $2,200, something like that, $2,100. Well, that house would rent for like $1,500, and it just didn't make sense. And she didn't have enough. There was no equity. She was actually probably 20 grand upside down on the equity. It just wasn't there. So, that being said, how do we do this? What do we do? Sorry. So we sent her mortgage statement to our investor, and we basically said, hey, for us to make this work, we would need the payment to be here, and we can help the lady. We can solve the problem. You can make money. We can all win here. Can you do this? And so we came back with like a new monthly payment. He dropped the rate down to like the low threes, and somehow got the monthly payment to go down to like $1,200. Now the thing is, nobody else that's calling her is going to be able to do that. And I'm not saying that because I'm special. Like I'm just saying that because that's a fact. That's true. And so so let's say we pull all throughout Texas, all the counties we work. Let's say we've got about 2,500 pieces of data to call to make something happen here. And let's say we can monetize. So out of those 2,500 pieces of data, my guess would be, and maybe Alex, you can chime in here and kind of give me your opinion too, because you're spending more time on the phone with them. My guess would be somewhere between 500 to 800 of those, nobody can help.
Yeah.
So it's a big market.
Big market.
Well, it's not, and this is on a monthly basis. So this is, sadly, foreclosures are skyrocketing in Texas right now. There's a ton, and they keep increasing month after month after month. And so what we're sitting on here is really an opportunity, if we can just continue to work out the kinks in the process, working with another company to do this. Like we're sitting on an opportunity to really revolutionize, at least in part, like the foreclosure industry as a whole, because nobody's doing this. It costs a lot of money to foreclose. Nobody wants to foreclose. Foreclosing disrupts the industry. Like if we can stop the sales and help people and put money in people's pockets, when otherwise they're screwed, they have to pay money to sell their house or face a foreclosure and get deficiency judgments. Have a train wreck on their credit for the next 10 years. I mean, it's the atomic bomb of credit trauma, like is what a foreclosure is. It's the worst thing. Why wouldn't we want to get people out of that? You know what I mean? It's almost redemptive in a if you frame it the way I frame it anyways. And so let's say that's 500 to 800 pieces of data that we can call. What's interesting about this, dude, is we don't have any competition. For the other, the other 1,000, 1,500 pieces, 1,700 pieces of data, yeah, we do have competition for that. We do. There's no question about it. But like, all those we really don't, and we just need to be on the phones and make the calls, and just learn how to share our service with them. And so on my side with Alex, this is where we role play every day. We try to master the script, and like so, Alex calling that lady yesterday and him being caught off guard because she's like, wait a minute, like she's talking about her marriage, the problem with her husband. There's some strange guy calling me right now and telling me my house is in foreclosure, and then all of a sudden everything clicks with her on the phone and she starts crying. Like, dude, how do you handle that?
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. So for us, how do we still work through that with sympathy, with empathy, with genuinely like trying to relate and be like, yeah, that's hard. Like, what do you do with that? I don't know. But also realize that they have a legitimate problem that's at least a financial problem on their hands. Yes, their marriage sucks. They're going through some trauma, but like, this is also real too, guys. And we can't just pretend that doesn't exist because you're trying to figure out your marriage. Like, how do we deal with this? You know what I'm saying? So on our end, mastering the acquisitions process and giving you guys swings at bat to move the deals is what we need to perfect. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the basics of this. So let's say we find an opportunity, like we're about to call somebody today, and if we can get new note terms that work well, then we'll have a contract to move. And if the numbers work, we should be able to move it relatively soon. I'm also, which is good for both of you guys to know, especially on the dispo side, I'm going to be hanging my real estate license with a different broker. All that means is that I'm going to be able to use my MLS access to list properties that we're going to sell, owner finance, and get them maximum exposure on the market. So we can use Facebook, we can use MLS, we can use the dispo platforms we have. We can use the list that we already have, the contacts we already have. Like, as long as the numbers make sense, we should be able to move these deals, man, all day.
Amen.
Yeah. Sounds good. I mean, Mark, you say some of the things but the reality is that we can't fix, this lady, we can't fix her marriage. You can't fix her marriage.
We cannot.
But if you can help her have one less bump, you know, I mean, that's one less bump. You know, one, it is what it is, I guess. You know, sometimes I hated dealing with the financing with the buildings and people calling me, and and I always tried to, a lot of times they'd make poor decisions. So at that point, all I could do was point them like the easiest way out or to solve it, because their problems were unsolvable for me,
Correct.
anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. We cannot solve their marriage problem.
Exactly.
We can pray with them, but we can't solve their foreclosure problem. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. It's a big problem. So we just need to position ourselves to do that. So that's what we've got right here. But the gist of what we're going to be like, the purpose of this content today was to really, okay, like the deed tells who owns the property. It's not the same thing as a deed of trust. It has the same word in it, but it's not the same. Two different documents. And then it's almost like, I think a good analogy that's like maybe explainable to somebody is like going to the grocery store and using a credit card with like Capital One's money, but you get a receipt for your purchase. And so like it's your groceries and you've used Capital One's money. It's just unsecured, but so like the transaction that you have with Capital One, you've signed an agreement with them. You know, you've given a personal guarantee you're going to pay the bill back, right? But they're not Capital One's groceries. And the receipt, I don't know if it'll have your name on it or not. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. In Costco, it's got my name on it because I have a membership. But same idea. Two different things. The receipt's like the deed, and all the paperwork you signed with Capital One is your deed of trust. Capital One's money. Does that make sense?
I think so. Can you tell me? I mean, yes, it does. What about, you said a mortgage note and a mortgage loan are two different things.
Yes.
And we talked about the note, but what differentiates the loan? Differentiates.
So there's a lot of affinity, and it's for all intents and purposes kind of the same thing, right? But when it gets granular, the loan is the actual sum of money that was used to pay the seller, and it was secured against the house with the deed of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the loan, and the promise to pay is the promissory note, which is what has value. The promissory note's what gets sold. The loan gets serviced, or the debt gets serviced, but the note is what somebody owns economic interest in that controls how the note is serviced according to the terms of the deed of trust. Those notes get sold in bundles daily, everywhere, all the time, all across the world. And so those notes are valuable.
Yeah.
Because whoever owns the note is the one that received the money from the repayment of the loan.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes. It's a little bit like with the more you play, the more it makes sense. I think. For me it does. And it's like, because when you go to sign for a loan, right, the promissory note does not get recorded. Now, you can record it on the deed of trust just for everybody to see. We just met a guy in Houston that does that. Peter Fortunato does that, Alex. I don't know if you caught that. But usually it's not recorded. So, like, if you go to buy a house, conventional loan, you will sign a promissory note at the closing documents. They will not release the funds if you don't sign a promissory note. And so when you do that, you get a copy of it, but they also get a copy of it, and that note goes to whoever owns the economic interest in that loan, whoever put the money up. So typically, like if a mortgage company loans money, that they get the money from Wall Street. They get the money from like hedge funds and private investors and big trusts and REITs and stuff like that. So it's not their money. They get the money back to remake new loans when they sell the notes, or when they sell the loans to other loan servicers, the servicing rights. But for the most part, that's it. That's the way the cookie crumbles.
Mark, I'm gonna send you. I mean, this guy is probably a little. Well, I don't know if now's the time to say this, but this guy from Macon, and he just moved down to. Man, I'm sitting in the hood now. I got people coming up my door.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to move. Um,
The police?
no, just this guy wanting money.
Nice.
I'm taking a load of scrap metal, cleaning up the place and stuff before we move, and
Maybe see if he wants the medal.
he probably does. I don't know how he'd get it. Just walking.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it, man. I just want to make sure that we're like constantly refining our skills, making sure we're brushed up on our understanding and knowledge of things. Because when you get into this game, a lot of people don't.
Just saying. Hey, man.
For $2 get some bread. So me and my wife can eat. I ate today. Yesterday we had Vienna sausages and crackers. But I bought some bologna and stuff last night for that.
Man,
I mean, I really appreciate it.
I know.
Don't normally shoot bad, but I didn't get paid on time. You should wait for a check.
Here. That's all.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Hey, thank you. I'm sorry to disturb you though.
No, you're okay.
All right.
Have a good one.
Yes, he just made a bunch of excuses, and they were probably all not true.
I know. In this case, it was easier to. Some people, I don't know what you think. I know I got friends that say they absolutely won't give and that he's not using it right. And I said, man, I don't. To me, this is me not solving. I'm not solving his problems, but that's just a mitzvot. I can give some charity.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't normally, but in this case, it was easier.
You know what's funny? Hindsight, it was mortifying for me, dude. When I lived in South Carolina, me and my wife and my daughter would pray for like the opportunity to go and help like people in need, and to be able to be generous to the poor. And so one day my wife calls me and she's like, "Hey, we got this lady. She's coming with us to do her laundry. We're gonna give her some food and let her take a shower at our house." And she was a homeless lady, dude. And she came to our house, and she was a black lady. She was didn't really talk much. And so we're sitting there at my table, like eating food, and my daughter, she's like 4 years old at the time, maybe 5. And she's just so innocent. She's like, "Me and my mama were praying that we were going to be able to help a poor person, and now you're here." I was like, "Oh my God. Oh my gosh." I'm sitting there like about to fall out of my chair, embarrassed.
That is funny.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to stop this.